Good afternoon, all. My name is Alex Cloherty, and on behalf of Oncode Accelerator, I would like to thank you for joining our webinar today. First of all, I would like to go over some general housekeeping notes with you. This webinar will be recorded and transcribed, and the recording will be available on our website afterwards for you. During the webinar, your microphones will stay muted to keep that recording clean, so please type your questions in the Q&A box. We've allocated time at the end of the webinar to address your questions. Before we get into the main content of the webinar today, I would like to briefly introduce you to Oncode Accelerator. Oncode Accelerator is a public-private program that, as the name implies, aims to accelerate preclinical oncology drug development. To do this, we build on and utilize the existing strong and interconnected oncology ecosystem in the Netherlands, and we aim to build bridges between different stakeholders and drug developers in the Netherlands and beyond. Already, we bring together over 35 public and private partners who together have pledged approximately 300 million euros to the program, for instance, to build innovative infrastructure. Our mission is to, over the next 10 years, collaboratively optimize and accelerate the development of new cancer therapies using the infrastructure that we're creating and innovating. And this is possible thanks to a grant through the Dutch National Growth Fund. At a glance, you can see that our partners include top academic institutions as well as world-class companies. But today, the goal of this webinar is to explain more about what Oncode Accelerator has to offer you. So without further ado, I would like to get to our main speaker, Bastiaan Bijl. Welcome, Bastiaan, on stage. Bastiaan is a business development manager with the Oncode Accelerator Foundation, and he's been with the program almost from its start, making him the perfect person to answer the question for you: how to access co-funding through Oncode Accelerator. Take it away, Bastiaan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex, for this nice introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Bastiaan, and I'm a business development manager at the Oncode Accelerator team. I joined in January last year, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to take you through the slides to explain how we can hopefully collaborate on accelerating cancer drug development. So a bit of a global introduction. So cancer, as you might all be aware, cancer is a major challenge in our health, to our healthcare systems and to our health in general. And let me move this out of the way. There's over 10 million people that die from cancer annually on a global scale. There's a 65% 5-year survival rate, despite great successes in recent years with new drugs. And it's predicted that at least for the Netherlands, there will be a 4 times increase in expenses for healthcare for cancer from 2019 to 2040. When it comes to developing new cancer therapies, that is a high risk and expensive and time-consuming process. It can cost hundreds of millions to billions of US dollars or euros to develop a new cancer drug. And it's estimated that annually around 50 to 60 billion US dollars is spent on oncology trials for drugs that eventually don't make it. The estimated cost per patient per year for cancer therapies is 100,000 to 500,000 US dollars. So costs are increasing, and that's an issue for society. There's a 3.4% success rate from phase 1 clinical trials to approval, which is very low. And as few as 15% of the drugs that actually hit the market turn out to be effective, meaning that they show an improved survival or quality of life after a median of 5.9 years on the market, which is also quite low. And there's across all new cancer medicines licensed in the United States and Europe between 2003 and 2013, most of them had only less than 4-month survival improvement. This is also due to the fact that new therapies hitting the market or coming to the market turn out to be only effective in a subset of the intended target population. So we think to solve this problem, we need to innovate the development process of cancer therapies. And it's our mission to do that. It's our mission to collaboratively optimize and accelerate the development of new cancer therapies for the benefit of patients of all ages. To do that, we think we need better preclinical models. If you have a patient with an indication and you want to develop a new drug for that patient, the first step in the preclinical discovery and development trajectory is to use generic preclinical models such as cell lines or mouse models to test your drug on, because you cannot test them in patients yet. But then, once you turn into the patient, once you go to the clinic, the heterogeneity, the inherent heterogeneity of the patient population kicks in, and it turns out to be effective in only a subset of the intended target population. So there's a clear gap between what happens in the preclinical setting and what eventually happens in the clinic itself. So we think we need better preclinical models that better capture that patient diversity. So we have a heterogeneous patient population, and if we could use patient-specific preclinical models, we could potentially bridge that gap. To do that, we are implementing 3 what we call innovation platforms within the Oncode Accelerator program. The first innovation platform is called Well-Defined Patient Cohorts, and through this platform we offer access to patient samples and patient clinical data. The second platform is the Organoid platform, which, as the name suggests, offers access to organoid models or tumor models, patient-specific organoid models or tumor models. And lastly, we're building predictive models using artificial intelligence to accelerate and improve various aspects of the drug discovery and drug development process. To zoom into the details a little bit more, I'll start with well-defined patient cohorts. Through this platform, drug developers can access real-world and real-time data and patient material, the samples, to increase the efficiency of the drug development process. By enabling accurate identification of real medical needs, getting real-time feedback on disease progression from the patients themselves, and assisting in early validation of new therapies. This should also increase the chance of success in development by leveraging relevant data earlier in the development pipeline. So basically, we're bringing the patient into the lab, into the preclinical lab. Patient cohorts that are currently supported by Oncode Accelerator are the following. So there's 8 adult cohorts that are currently supported. Those are head and neck cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, CRC, so colorectal cancer, bladder cancer, ovarian cancer, hematological cancers with T-cell therapies, and some rare cancers such as neuroendocrine neoplasmata. For the indications with an asterisk, there are matching organoid models available in the Organoids platform. We also have 1 pediatric cohort, which focuses on a variety of cancers such as neuroblastoma, sarcoma, and Wilms tumor and more. And this pediatric cohort is available from the Princess Maxima Center in Utrecht. Going to the Organoids platform. Our in-house organoid models allow for clinically relevant screening of the efficacy of therapeutic candidates. Available technologies include the classical organoids, which are adult stem cell-derived organoids in droplets that maintain patient genotype and functionality. And in some cases, we have a match with the patient cohort. So there are organoids available that have matching clinical data from the patient cohorts. The second technology that we offer within the Oncode Accelerator program is the MOS, the microorganosphere. This is done through our commercial partner Xylus. And microorganospheres are automatically generated microdroplets containing primary tissue digest that natively retain the tumor microenvironment in vitro. And lastly, we partner with Mimetas, to offer their organ on a chip model, which are perfused organoid tubules with apical access and membrane-free interaction between epithelium, stroma, tumor, and immune cells. Available organoid models are head and neck cancer, liver cancer, CRC, so colorectal cancer, and bladder cancer. And again, the asterisk indicates whether there are matching patient cohorts available for the available organoid models that you see on this slide. Of course, there's also pediatric organoid models available at the Princess Maxima Center for a variety of pediatric indications, as you can see on the right-hand side on this slide. Then coming to artificial intelligence. Within the Oncode Accelerator program, we are applying AI tools to clinically relevant data sets to support identification and optimization of lead therapy candidates, predicting the efficacy of novel therapies, to identify potential patient populations for proof of concept studies, and the use of this innovative platform should accelerate the pace of discovery and ultimately enhance patient outcomes. When we look at the traditional drug development pipeline, the entire pipeline, starting from basic research to drug discovery, preclinical development, then going into the clinic, clinical trials, phase 1, 2, 3, then going to registration and reimbursement, and then eventually implementation and marketing. If you look at, as I mentioned before, in the preclinical setting, the methods of choice are preclinical models such as mouse models or other animal models or cell lines, and the patient is only involved in the clinical stage. And hopefully, if you start having an impact with your new drug, the impact only comes after the implementation and marketing approval of your new drug. There might be some impact on the patients that are enrolled in the trial, but the real impact is made after the marketing implementation. And as I mentioned before, there's a clear gap between what happens in the preclinical phase and what happens in the clinic. If you look at the focus of Oncode Accelerator, the scope of Oncode Accelerator, we focus with our projects on discovery and preclinical development. So we are trying to innovate the discovery and preclinical development aspects of the drug development for oncology therapies. We're doing that by implementing the innovation platforms that I described before in this development process. So those are the Organoid platform, the artificial intelligence platform, and the Patient Cohorts platform, to eventually have a long-lasting impact on patients. We do that not only by implementing the innovation platforms, but by also setting up 4 what we call work streams. 1 work stream for small molecules, 1 for biologics, 1 for cell and gene therapy, and 1 for therapeutic vaccines. And what are these work streams? These work streams are innovative preclinical development pipelines for 4 product types that I just mentioned. We're utilizing existing building blocks from the Dutch oncology ecosystem and integrating them and scaling them up. We're implementing new technologies. We are validating the innovative pipeline with the innovation platforms. We create access for outside researchers to the validated and innovative infrastructure with the ultimate goal of developing clinical candidates. And as I said, we're doing that together with the innovation platforms within the Oncode Accelerators program. Zooming into what can be done in the work streams. So the work streams can be seen as more or less your traditional discovery and development infrastructure or pipeline, which are then complemented by the innovation platforms. And I'll show you a nice overview in a bit. But first, what is it that we can do for you if you're developing a therapeutic vaccine? The workstream therapeutic vaccines can help you identify the best immunogenic tumor antigens to react against. It can help with developing flexible vaccine platforms and adjuvants. It can perform in-depth single cell and spatial immune profiling, for example, to look at patient stratification, or to characterize the systemic and local impact of vaccines. It can help you produce a therapeutic vaccine under GMP standards at clinical trial scale and with clinical candidate nomination for several different vaccine platforms. Looking at what the cell and gene therapy workstream can do for you is validate ATMP candidate selection, including target identification, validation, and design, leverage plug-and-play modules covering a majority of cell types for ATMP production design, characterize the specificity and effectivity of your ATMP, including the on-off target reactivity profile. They can help you with performing pre-GMP simulations to assess GMP readiness of your process, and they can prepare for and execute GMP production, including final formulation development, cryopreservation, analytical assay development, and stability testing. And lastly, they can establish clinical candidate documentation, including a preclinical package, IMPD documentation, and validation of QC tests. Going to the biologics workstream. The biologics workstream can help you discover antibodies against your target, including difficult to target transmembrane proteins. They can undertake antibody panel development through antibody engineering paired with in vitro and in vivo characterization. They can perform lead characterization and optimization. They can assess the pharmacokinetics of your antibody in a human system, and they can help with performing cell line generation, process development, and manufacturing through a unique preclinical and GMP infrastructure specialized in early production of biologics. And lastly, we have the small molecules workstream, and they can help you with produce, purify, and characterize proteins for assay development and structural biology analysis. They can help you accelerate your lead discovery project with in silico phenotypic and high throughput screening. They can improve hit to clinical candidate development using medicinal chemistry, structural biology, ADME-T, and pharmacokinetics. They can use AI to predict the direct and indirect cellular targets of leads and clinical candidates. And they can apply activity-based protein profiling or chemical proteomics to study compound cellular selectivity and target engagement. And they can determine the cellular effects of small molecules via proteomics and metabolomics. And lastly, they can also help with running microdosing studies to assess pharmacokinetics in a phase 0 study. So bringing it all together, we discussed the innovation platforms, we discussed the 3 innovation platforms, we discussed the 4 work streams. So how does this all come together into an overall strategy for the Oncode Accelerator program? And what is the link between the work streams and the platforms? So starting with the work streams again, the small molecules, biologics, cell and gene therapy, and therapeutic vaccines. I explained to you that this is more or less your traditional discovery and development infrastructure with an innovative aspect, an innovative infrastructure for discovery and development of your asset. If we put the innovation platforms, the patient cohorts, organoids, and artificial intelligence on top of that, you get a matrix-like structure. And the linchpin between those two, between what we call the work streams and the innovation platforms, are what we call demonstrator projects. Demonstrator projects are meant to link the work streams with the innovation platforms and to be able to validate the innovative infrastructure and to test the hypothesis that patient cohorts or organoids or artificial intelligence or all of them can have a lasting effect on the can have an accelerating effect on the development of new cancer therapies. We need assets to prove that. So we are looking for partners in academia, pharma, biotech that have assets in oncology, early stage, starting from a validated target, that are interested in partnering with us, running a project in our program together with our partners, utilizing the innovative infrastructure from one of the work streams, utilizing at least one of the innovation platforms, and then we can provide co-funding of up to 50%, 50, of the execution cost of the project. And I'll touch upon that later on. To be able to accomplish this, we are also speaking with regulators. So we're speaking on a regular basis with the EMA because this is all new. This is not validated yet. The use of patient cohorts, patient data, organoids, and or AI in the preclinical setting is relatively new. So we are already in contact with regulators to make sure that any impact that this can have on the future development is known by the regulators, and they can also advise us on how to best act next. We, as Oncode Accelerator Foundation, act as a central organization and central coordinating partner for anything related to demonstrator projects. So we are your go-to people for demonstrator projects. So with demonstrator projects, we try to bridge the gap between discovery and the clinic to drive impact for patients. We empower researchers to execute efficient R&D via co-development, and we facilitate connections between public and private drug developers, investors, and regulators globally. Zooming into the work streams a bit more, as you can see on the slide here, there's 4 potential entry points for a demonstrator project. So, demonstrator project is one stage of this pipeline per work stream and must demonstrate the implementation of the innovations from at least one innovation platform. So let's take an example for biologics. The light gray chevrons are where you can enter into a demonstrator project. So you can do a demonstrator project in antibody generation and lead discovery. You could do a demonstrator project in lead optimization, one in preclinical development and GMP readiness, and even in GMP production. Depending on where you are with your asset, you can enter at any stage. Eventually, the program is lasting for about 8 more years. Eventually, we hope that we will have assets that enter in one of the first stages and be very successful within the Oncode Accelerator program, and they will reapply for a follow-on demonstrator project. But if you're already a bit more advanced, you can also apply at a later stage. That doesn't really matter. The first in human is only an exit point. So first in human is a small first in human proof of concept with a maximum of 10 patients, but this can only be done if you've entered into the pipeline earlier and want to proceed with a first in human based on the work that has been done in the Oncode Accelerator program. So good to know is that your demonstrator project needs to fall within one of these 4 boxes. And there's additional money available for a follow-up project with the same asset if needed. And this is how we envision the use of the different innovation platforms. But this can vary based on your needs, of course. So why would you join Oncode Accelerator? Well, we can help you with co-funding and project management support to maximize the chance of success. So we'll help you with developing your asset. We provide access to the innovations. So our unique infrastructure includes advanced technologies, expertise, and facilities that support improved and accelerated preclinical development. And through the Oncode Accelerator program, you get access to a network of experts with a vibrant and impactful ecosystem of world-renowned scientific experts. Who can apply? Anyone can apply. We have 50 million euros available for phase 1, of which 25 million euros comes from co-funding from us, and 25 million euros needs to be matched. The maximum funding contribution from us per demonstrator project is 1.5 million euros. We operate on a continuous intake and evaluation basis as long as budget is available. Then on the call criteria, so you're only applicable for a demonstrator project if you develop a product for one of the 4 types of cancer therapies in the program. So it needs to be around an asset itself. An asset that eventually can go into the clinic. That's one of the major criteria for entering into a demonstrator project. And you need to have at least one innovation platform, so patient cohorts, organoids, or AI that is used in your demonstrator project application. We aim to validate the innovative Oncode Accelerator infrastructure, one of the preclinical development stages that I showed you before. The starting point is a validated target or validated hit, and in vitro validation is sufficient here. And the endpoint is maximum first in human in a small cohort of maximum 10 patients. Our contribution is 25 to 50% of the execution costs of the project can be co-funded through Oncode Accelerator. The basic is 50%, and for higher technology readiness levels, it's 25%. So if it's technology readiness level 5, then we can go up to 25% co-funding. But the amount of 1.5 million euros per demonstrator project stands, irregardless of the maximum contribution. And the 25% contribution is maxed by the European state aid regulations. So how do you apply? Let's say that you have an asset and you want to apply for a demonstrator project. You think you're a match. How does it work? First step is to engage into an exploratory discussion with myself or one of my business development colleagues based on where you're located in Europe or in the world. The first actual step, and then we can explain to you what the program is about, what it is that you need to take into account when applying. But the first actual step is to download and complete the intake form on our website. The intake form is seen by us as an expression of interest and will be reviewed. It should take you 2 to 4 hours to complete, so it's not that much work. And once we receive the intake form, we will do an eligibility check. So does it fulfill all the eligibility criteria of the Oncode Accelerator program? And we will do a high-level technical feasibility check with the executing partners. If information is missing in the intake form, don't worry. We will reach out to you. Me or any of my business development colleagues will reach out to you and let you know if we need more information or if there's certain unclarities or if you need to rewrite the intake form a bit to bring it in scope. So we will actively help you with that. Once there's green lights on both the eligibility check and the technical feasibility check, we enter into a multi-party NDA agreement with all the executing partners, and we invite you to write a full proposal. At this point in time, a project manager from our team will onboard you, will create a SharePoint, and they will make sure that the whole full proposal generation goes smoothly, although you will have to do the writing yourself. The executing partners will be responsible for generating an outline of the project plan based on the work packages that are defined in the full proposal. Of course, this all goes in collaboration. And then once the full proposal and the outline of the project plan are finished, they are sent to the Demonstrator Advisory Board, which is an independent advisory committee which advises our board of directors whether they should co-fund the project or not. To download the intake form, please scan this QR code to go directly to the page where you can download the intake form, or we will make sure to follow up with a link to the intake form as well after this webinar. And that basically concludes my presentation for now. So I'll leave this up for a few more seconds so you can scan the QR code. And then I'll give the floor back to Alex for the Q&A.
Thanks very much, Bastiaan, for guiding us through this. I see people are still thinking about it if they have any questions so far, but we can get into a few questions that we've received before. And again, if people do have questions, please type them in the Q&A box. Your mics will remain muted, but you're welcome to type out your question through the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to get to it if possible. So one of the questions that we've gotten a few times previously when we've discussed this in other groups is about the other 50%. So 50% of the costs for execution of a demonstrator project will be provided by Oncode Accelerator, as you explained, but what about the other 50%? Where can those funds come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So because the work that is done in a demonstrator project is subsidized, so we or the partners doing the work have to adhere to European state aid regulations. Generally speaking, that means that a part of the money that is used for matching depends a little bit on the exact stage and the technology readiness level, but a part of the money that is used for matching needs to come from private sources. So cannot come from any government sources or European Union government or European Union related government sources. Examples in the Netherlands are KWF, which is the Cancer Foundation, which is donation money. Example in the UK can be CRUK, which is also considered private because it's donation money. If it would be the NIH in the US, that would also be fine because that's outside of the European economic area. But we get this question a lot, and usually the answer to this question is it depends. So it depends, and it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So if you are in doubt, if you have some money that comes from a government or seems to come from a government and you're not sure if you can use it or not, reach out to us and then we can assess whether this could be used or not. But this is indeed a very important question. Yeah.
Thanks, Bastiaan. We have a question from the audience coming in now. So Dishant says, thank you for the presentation, and wonders, does Oncode Accelerator also collaborate with applied universities, so hogescholen or lectorats? Can you comment?
I don't think so. I think you showed the slide, the overview slide with all the partners. I don't think there's any applied universities that are now part of the Oncode Accelerator program. So I think the answer is no.
But what about if somebody from an applied university wants to apply for a demonstrator project? Would they be eligible?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. That would
so
be no
it
problem.
Remains anybody can apply. It remains
anybody can apply. Yes. Yeah. So anybody from the Netherlands or also, and I didn't explicitly mention that during the presentation, but anybody from the Netherlands or from abroad can apply for a demonstrator project. Yeah.
Clear. Thanks. Another question that we've had quite often in the past was speaking about this topic that anybody from the Netherlands or abroad can apply. So if someone was applying from outside of the Netherlands, is there any requirement for company relocation or subsidiary opening within the Netherlands to be eligible for a demonstrator project?
Yeah, good question. And indeed, this question we got this question quite frequently. No, the answer is no. So there's no obligation for you to relocate to the Netherlands or to open up an office in the Netherlands. If you're not from the Netherlands and you want to bring in your asset into the program for accelerating your asset, you don't have to open up an office in the Netherlands. You just have to provide your asset.
Clear. Thank you. Again, if people from the audience have any further questions, you're welcome to still add them in the Q&A box. We have a little bit more time. But while you're thinking about it, we have another question coming in. So you went through the overview of what the different partners within our program can provide along each work stream development pipeline. But if there is a specific expertise missing from that overview so that the partners cannot already provide, what are the possibilities for an applicant for a demonstrator project to choose a different service provider? So not going through the Oncode Accelerator program, but going with another partner.
Yeah, the short answer is it depends. The long answer is it depends on whether that activity is crucial for the demonstrator project and also contributes to validating the infrastructure. So I would say if you have a specific question concerning that, reach out to us or to me or one of my business development colleagues, because then we can more specifically address it. In theory, yes, it is possible to work with outside partners if a certain capability that is necessary to execute a demonstrator project is not available within any of the partners of the Oncode Accelerator program. However, we would need to see how crucial that specific activity is for the actual demonstrator project. So this again needs to be judged on a case-by-case basis.
Clear. Thanks, Bastiaan. Another question from the audience. Thank you, Dr. Asim. He asks, would you consider funding cancer drug discovery projects focused on prostate cancer, as he recognizes that we don't have near patient models of prostate cancer yet?
Yes, we would, but it depends on your requirements. So at the moment, we don't have prostate cancer models available. We are trying to get them on board if they're available, but that will take a while. The program is still expanding and getting new partners on board. So I would say it's definitely not a no, but again, reach out to us to discuss the possibilities and the impossibilities potentially as well. Because it also depends on what kind of asset it is, what you would need with regards to capabilities to bring it. For maybe you don't need any organoid models. Maybe you just need AI, and then they could potentially help, for example. So I would say it's not a definite no. But feel free to reach out to discuss this in more detail.
Thanks, Bastiaan. And again, we'll also share a email address to which you can use to reach out to our business developers here at Oncode Accelerator Foundation to ask more detailed questions for these "it depends" answers.
Yeah.
Another question from the audience from Nina. She asks, do you expect programs or projects related to AI that are more about organ health monitoring?
No. No. I mean, to be in scope for an Oncode Accelerator demonstrator project, it needs to be about an asset. So you need to have a therapy asset that you can further develop, and it needs to be either a small molecule or an antibody or a cell therapy or a therapeutic vaccine. That's the asset, or it can also be a target. If you have a validated target that you want to develop an asset around, and you don't know yet whether this is going to be a small molecule or a biologic, then yes, but it needs to be around an asset. So if you're developing an AI platform, or if you're developing a companion diagnostic, that's all out of scope. It needs to be around really bringing a therapy to the clinic. That's the scope of the Oncode Accelerator, and unfortunately, everything else is out of scope.
Thanks for the clarification, Bastiaan. We have another question from the audience, which is more about IP. So he asks, how does IP work in this partnership? And do you charge any stake or equity if, for example, a startup comes up with that 50% matching fund?
Yeah, good question. So we don't take any equity. We don't take any stake in the companies. Let me start by doing that. How does it work with IP? So all the data, all the background IP that you bring in remains yours. All the data generated during the execution of the project will be put into an option package. And you have an exclusive right to execute the option after the project finishes. And if you decide to execute the option against fair and reasonable pre-agreed terms and conditions, if you agree to execute the option, then you get a one-time, in exchange for a one-time payment, you get unencumbered access or a full assignment of all results and potential IP that arises from the demonstrator project. So we're not in this to make money. So there's no royalty streams afterwards. There's no equity. There's no stake in companies, even in startups. There's just this. There's just the matching upfront. It's a bit of a risk sharing. We pay 50% and you pay 50%. And at the end, if you decide that you want to use the data for further commercialization, then you pay a one-time transfer fee, lump sum transfer fee for full assignment of the results. And the expectation is that the amount of the transfer fee will be more or less equal to the co-funding that we initially provided.
Thanks, Bastiaan. So it's a part of a risk-sharing mechanism, you can say.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Clear. We don't have further questions from the audience at this time. If you have any further questions, there are a couple of minutes to answer them. So please do go ahead. But in the meantime, Bastiaan, if you could go to the next slide.
Yes.
Oh, one more.
Yeah,
there we go. Thank you. I would also like to invite everybody to our next webinar. So as Bastiaan has explained today, we have a lot of diverse experts within the Oncode Accelerator program, and as well as webinars like this about how you can access that expertise, as well as our infrastructure and co-funding opportunities. We also want to share the knowledge within the program. So next month on April 15th, we'll have another webinar, which is more about regulatory innovation along these drug development pipelines that Bastiaan has explained today. So please do follow us on LinkedIn. If you're interested in joining, you'll be able to see an opportunity to register for that webinar coming up very shortly. And if you go to the next slide, Bastiaan.
Yeah, this one.
There we go. We're also very happy to hear your feedback about this webinar. So if you'd like to let us know what you thought, please take a moment to scan the QR code on your screen here, and you can provide feedback to us so that we can continue iteratively improving the webinars. You can also find the link in the Q&A section shared by one of my colleagues. And in the meantime, I see we have one more question, so we have just enough time to answer this one. Thank you, Thomas Eriksson, for it. He says, thank you for the presentation. And are we interested in tools to enhance the development process? For example, target validation of small molecules and diagnostics. And if so, who to contact to present this? Can you comment, Bastiaan?
So we as central coordinating Oncode Accelerator Foundation have no say in whether the partners should or should not work with external providers, service providers. What you can do is send an email to the email address you see here, demonstrators@oncodeaccelerator.nl. What we can do is we can have a brief look at what it is that you're offering, and forward it to the relevant people in the work streams in this case, and then it's up to them to contact you or not. That's what we can do. So we cannot say that certain partners should work with a certain party, because we play a coordinating role. But what we can do is, if you send us information at the email address you see on this slide, then we can see if we can forward that to the appropriate people in the program, and if they are interested, they can then contact you directly.
Thanks, Bastiaan. So again, please reach out is the answer. You can see the demonstrators at oncodeaccelerator.nl email address both on the slide on your screen, and it's also been shared in the Q&A box, I believe, as well as the 5-minute survey to provide us feedback. But this now brings us just about to the end of our time together today. So thank you all very much for joining. Thanks, Bastiaan, for guiding us through this information. And we hope very much to hear from some of you one way or another. Thanks again for your time, and we'll see you hopefully in the next webinar or otherwise.
Thank you.